Oh, and we'll bring it back up to Elizabeth.
Yes. All recommendations that are submitted by committees and subcommittees will be reviewed and considered, but not all recommendations will ultimately be included in the proposed new funding formula. So tonight's meeting, it shouldn't really take long. We are just going to go over policies, and Miss Thurman will kind of guide us through that because I don't think any of us are super familiar with policies, and it's just basically going to be going through them and see if we have any feedback. Ultimately, the steering committee is just asking for our feedback and to look at their questions. So it shouldn't take much time, and there's not a lot of us either. So if you have anything, you can share it, and we'll get started.
If you all took some time, and I know you've been so busy, but if you looked at the video that I sent you, the link of the commissioner meeting with the steering committee, you saw their discussions about policy. And the steering committee asked the commissioner to get all subcommittees feedback on some of the policies. These are not all of them, but these are some that they wanted some feedback from you all. And so the way we've been doing this is the policy is on the left-hand side. The subcommittee feedback would go on the right. And then the steering committee, they've asked specific questions from you all. And the commissioner knew that this was going to be a difficult task for the student engagement group, just simply because of you're not familiar with policies. I'm not familiar with policies, but what you do have are thoughts, and you all have had some pretty powerful thoughts on a lot of the recommendations that you've made. So your thoughts on this are valued, and the commissioner wanted you all to weigh in. We don't have to start at the very first one and go through every single one. What I'll do is give you some time. I hope that you can see it. I'll give you some time, about 30 seconds, to read the policy and then read the question that's being asked, and then to weigh in on that, to offer any suggestions. So this is once the funding formula is put in place and legislators start thinking about teacher salaries, what is it that you would like for them to consider as they write that policy? What would that look like? What would you want them to consider? We don't have to go back to the recommendations. Your recommendations have already been shared and recorded and public notice now, public documents. And so you don't have to go back to and make recommendations on that. This is just things that you would like for that steering committee, legislators, commissioner to keep in mind as they start setting policies once legislators decide what they're going to do about the new funding formula. So I'll give you a few minutes or a few seconds to read each slide and weigh in as you'd like to. Again, this is just brainstorming. You don't have to come to consensus. The group does not have to come to a consensus like we did with the recommendations. This is just a brainstorming session.
Zoe, do you have a question?
Oh, no, I don't. I actually came into the meeting with a couple of suggestions for the definitions. So when everyone gets ready, I'll let everybody get done reading before I start to share.
Perfect.
So we'll do the same with this slide. I'll let you read the policy and then the questions the steering committee is asking, and feel free to weigh in if you have any thoughts. Okay. Would anybody like to weigh in?
I can go first. So, I know the last meeting, I was talking to you, Ms. Thurman, about maybe like the difference between concentration of poverty and economic disadvantage and like how they were defining that. So I just brought some like solutions that other states are doing, and see maybe we could like see like I don't know which ones that the subcommittee really like vibes with, for lack of better words. So I'll read and let me know if I'm going too fast. And I believe I can drop this in the chat. It will just take a process because I'm reading from my laptop. So
Okay.
So they say, the most common approach for defining this, and which is different from what is currently defined in the policy reflections, is that the district's ones where 30% of the students are low income at a lesser rate than every low income student in the district, where 50% of students hail from low income backgrounds. The states that take this approach include Arkansas, Ohio, Texas, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and California. So basically, I think they're just saying for every low-income student, I guess a multiplier is taken, and that's how they, I guess, define or see where this district has a concentration of poverty or not. I think that one is pretty cool, except for the fact that it's a little bit complicated. Complicated in the fact of like, well, I think it has a straight calculation. It's just the way that in which it's described is difficult to understand. Um, yeah. Um, Other states like North Carolina also apply varying multipliers for poverty concentration, but use alternative measures instead of childhood poverty estimates, such as average district household income, in the case of North Carolina. And I think that actually might be a truer representation of concentration of poverty, because as we know that income levels, especially low income levels, relate to, and depending on where you live, like I guess housing, you get into that type thing, kind of reflect whether there's a low income community or not. So yeah, and if a district has like, if there's a threshold and the average is under the threshold, then you're able to see more clear is that a district that has a concentration of poverty or not. And then I guess the last one I'll share is that Pennsylvania provides supplemental funding to districts lower than state average to median household incomes. The state also uses a funding multiplier that varies for every economic disadvantaged student in each district, depending on the district's poverty concentration. But I think they're saying they just define it as who the districts with lower than average median income. So yeah. Let me know. I actually have to find the drop in the chat so you guys can read it for yourselves, because I know that was a lot of talking and I do talk fast, so I apologize.
Zoe, okay, so let's summarize it so that I can put it in writing. In writing. And it sounds like you mentioned multiplier, a funding multiplier. Yeah. So yes. How would you summarize that?
Okay. You just want me to go like, okay, you want me to go like the best one that I read, or like I want to do that.
I think it's yeah, and we don't have to. I don't have to mention all of the states, but I could mention a few of those states as examples.
All right. Yeah, give you a minute to figure that out, okay. And then I'll voice that later.
Yeah. While you're thinking of a summary, then we'll let Callie. Looks like she would like to weigh in.
Hey, yeah, so I know kind of going off the definition basis for policy, the last few meetings that we've had, specifically the definition of economically disadvantaged, currently it's a direct certification, but I know as a group and a team, we've all kind of been discussing how maybe it's the economically disadvantaged kids kind of run on a spectrum more so. I know it may be hard to kind of change the qualifications for this certification, but maybe we can either increase the amount of like the household income. I don't know if that's possible, because I know, like we said, family may have an income that is above that threshold, so they don't get that certification, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can pay for all the different things for their kids, like lunches, meals, etc. So maybe if we can kind of change that in some way, if possible. Like I said, I know we talked about that being a spectrum, kind of important on the last few meetings.
So you would recommend for the definition of economically disadvantaged to increase the amount of the household income? Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Or the threshold?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyone else?
I'd like to weigh in on middle school outcomes, I believe was one of the policies. So I was actually talking to my student government advisor about this yesterday, but English learners in elementary school and middle school, I guess I could say for both of them, this can include both of them, but those who are not native English speakers have to take the WIDA test, I believe it is, and I think that maybe consider certain percentage of growth for those students who have to take that test. Just a thought, just a consideration there, but that's something that stands out to me.
So you're saying that a certain students who take WIDA should have a certain percentage of growth?
Yes, like you should see a certain percentage of growth. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you saying that's it for middle school?
I think it could go under elementary school too, because do those kids have to take? I'm not as familiar with the WIDA test, but I know that those who don't speak English have to take it.
Yeah.
But, I think
I'll put it under both outcomes.
Yes,
I'll do a recommendation for both.
Perfect. Monsi?
Yes, there was a policy a little further down. It was called Tutoring, I'm pretty sure, and said something like if the third graders score below, they're required to like on their TCAP. Yes. Should there be funding included in the formula for this legally required support? I think there should definitely be funding because third grade is like a pretty high benchmark level of like learning that they're doing. Like they're meeting a lot of those criteria to move on to like that middle school level. Like from where I'm from, like in my town, all of our elementary schools stop at third grade. So once you're in fourth grade, you're in the junior high, which is the middle school. So at that point, it's like a completely new environment for them. So I think like tutoring in the funding formula would be really beneficial to them in that third grade level.
Okay. Ella, did you have something to say?
Yes, one thing I was gonna weigh in on was the teacher salaries policy. I'm not sure, just to kind of answer the question of something else that we should include if it's not already included, is I know that especially with Tennessee growing so much, a lot of areas have become way more expensive to live in. And so areas like Nashville could be very hard to afford on the current teacher salary. So maybe adding in how much housing is in the area that you teach, just to make it a little bit easier on them.
Cost of living,
Yes, ma'am.
possibly cost of living be a consideration. There was actually a discussion in one of the other subcommittees yesterday. Cost of living. Specifically Nashville is what they were talking about. Zoe, did you have your summary?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Okay, so just for the first part, it's like 2 sentences. So that was like saying, the recommendation is to like apply multipliers for districts that have a concentration of poverty. And then secondly, the way you calculate that is where districts that have concentration of poverty are defined by where the average income in a district is lower than the median income, and that's seen in states such as Pennsylvania and North Carolina. And also, Callie, I really agree with your point about cost of living, and I think that's a really great point to bring up.
Good, thanks, Zoe. It's a great summary. So, Zoe, I'm just curious, where did you find that? Was that in some of the resources that were shared?
Yeah, I went back to the actually went back to the Vanderbilt study, and looked through some of that. Yeah.
Good. Good. I'm glad they were helpful. Anyone else?
Oh, well, I don't have a specific thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I think Monty was in your hands. I kind of cut in. My bad. Go ahead.
That's okay, Zoe. You can go ahead if you want to finish up your thought.
Oh, I didn't have a specific thought. I just kind of see we could generate some some conversation about the middle school outcomes, because I was like, that's pretty interesting, because I never thought like a lot of the outcomes I've seen are more geared towards like post grad career and like college and tech school type things. So I don't know, like I don't know, some measurable like tangible things you could see out of a middle schooler, because like as far as test goes, like you have things like the PSAT, like the 8th and 9th one, but like I don't know, like something that you could like track that would be like possible for everyone to have or like to take and be like accessible at the same time.
I know at my middle school that I went to, Waverly Junior High, all 8th graders in our county were required to take the pre-ACT, which is kind of like a foundation of what classes you'll take in high school. Like you had to meet a certain amount, like certain benchmark to the pre-ACT benchmarks for the teachers to recommend you to take the STEM courses in high school. Um, Otherwise, you'd have to choose a different program of study, like business or health science. But STEM obviously requires more dedication and more attention for a high schooler. So, and I also had a comment about the CTE. That also connects with the middle school outcomes, I guess, as well. Could we include in the CTE policy middle school CTE? We've talked a lot about resources for high school CTE, but really stressing that we want middle schoolers to also have access to that.
Monty, I was going to add and elaborate to both of your points on middle school outcomes, and then you said it perfectly. I thought of middle school outcomes, we have talked a lot about CTE, and I think implementing career and technical exposure programs would be great for middle schoolers, because when they get to high school, they might feel a little lost when it comes to picking a program of study. I know as a freshman, I just kind of chose whatever seemed interesting or compelling to me, and people seem to choose what their friends are choosing. So I think that it's important for middle schoolers to get their foot in the door when it comes to technical and just career exposure programs. So absolutely, I agree with that 100%.
I was looking through the draft formula. I think you all have got a copy of that draft formula. That's been discussed a lot. CTE in middle school has been discussed in all of this, or a lot of the subcommittee. So I was looking to see if it was in the draft already. I believe it is. I was looking specifically for middle school, if that's in there. I'll keep looking, and then because I know it's somewhere in there.
Tedabia, do you want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, so I was gonna speak on accountability. Now, I don't know if this will seem a little bit redundant, but I feel like for any formula proposal we have to see that progress is being made, obviously. So we need to make sure there are like benchmarks in place that like whatever financial funding that we're giving, it's not just kind of not wasted, but like kind of not used in the manner that it's supposed to be used for. So I guess really instilling this idea of a benchmark is important.
Zoe, did you have another thought?
Oh no, I agree with like Tedavia and like on that same tandem. Like when we're doing outcomes specifically, like not only I think should they not only be like surrounded by benchmarks, but also they should probably be more growth based rather than achievement based. Achievement based kind of not saying marginalizes, but especially after like if you're seeing this funding that you never had before, like you can't really expect. It says better audio quality. Okay, but you can't really expect like changes and like specifically meeting those like achievement not benchmarks, but like I guess the threshold of the state or whoever wants you to like just overnight. So I think in placing like or encouraging growth benchmarks comparatively allows one to like, okay, see, like you still get like incentives for growing and you don't get penalized for not meeting that benchmark which club, but you're encouraging growth because like it's still if you're growing 2%. Oh, as Mike like volleyball coach says, like 1% every day by 6 months. How many percentage points is that? And that's a lot. So yeah, just not necessarily saying, okay, you have to get 21, but maybe like it's like, oh well, maybe you grow 2 points every year, something like that. So yeah.
Good thoughts. Any others? Policy is it's a little more difficult than coming up with your recommendations that you made. Well, Elizabeth, it doesn't look like there's going to be any other thoughts.
I don't think so. I really liked that percentage thought, Zoe. I think that kind of ties back to what I mentioned about WIDA, just making sure a certain percentage is encouraged. So I really like that thought. But I don't think there's anybody else.
Okay. Stephen, would you like to say anything before we dismiss these fabulous students?
Sure. I will just say that you all have been so incredibly insightful. I have learned so much. I think I selfishly have more access to students on a daily basis than most people at the Department of Education because I work so closely with so many teachers and students every day just through DECA and FBLA and all of the CTSOs. But to see you all shine in this particular light and to see your level of awareness, um, after every meeting that we've had, I can't lie. I'm bragging like, y'all, these kids, I mean, just the stuff that you all are just aware of, and you're advocating for your teachers and advocating for yourselves and for your fellow classmates, you know, whether they are faced with some of the struggles that you might not even, you know, have to face yourselves. The fact that you're verbalizing and saying, this is what my peers need, and you're taking into consideration what other students in your districts need. I mean, I'm marveled at what you all have accomplished, the things that you all have shared over the past several weeks. I'm so proud of all of you. This has just been incredibly enriching for me in a selfish way, just to hear you all and to learn from you all. I think student voice is the most important voice in education. Um, you know, and of course, next to that will be the teachers, and the fact that you all are advocating like you're doing and articulating yourselves. I feel that much more confident that our future will remain bright because of the decisions that you all are making, and because of the choices you're prioritizing, and because of the things that you're standing firm on, those beliefs. I love it, and I'm extremely proud of all of you.
Stephen, I said the very same thing to someone in a district yesterday about this group, this very group, that our future is bright. Our future is bright, period, because these are going to be our leaders someday. So I'm just so incredibly proud of them. I do the same thing. And Senator Massey, would you like to share anything with this fabulous group?
Well, I can just echo what you all do. I'm kind of happier. I actually broke my arm on Monday, and so I am kind of dealing with that. But I'm kind of doing. It's my left arm, and I'm left-handed. But you guys are amazing, and you know I've enjoyed just listening to you, the way you think through things and really analyze it and look for the resources that are available. You know, that's what making policy is all about.
Yeah, you all have inspired all of the adults here, including the commissioner. She's inspired because I'm sure to tell her every week, every Friday on our follow-up call. So thank you all. I'm not going to keep you any longer. I really respect your time that you've given us, and you too, Senator, and Stephen, I really appreciate the time. I know this has been a heavy lift for everyone. It's been a time commitment, and the department really appreciates your time commitment and just being so thoughtful in all that you do. And so good luck. I hope that I get to see some of these names in bright lights and state government or districts. I know we will someday. So good luck, and thanks for letting me be your facilitator.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, this is so sad. Oh,
It's kind of sad, isn't it?
It is sad.
Oh, wait, real quickly, I kind of wanted to thank Elizabeth for serving as chair. She did an amazing job. We know this was such a huge time commitment, especially for planning beforehand and afterwards. And I think she did a really great job as balancing student voice and really facilitating. So thank you.
Yes,
I agree, Elizabeth.
Most
Yes.
amazing chair ever. We're so grateful for you.
Thank you guys so much. I
Great
really
job,
appreciate
Elizabeth.
it. And I learned a lot from you guys. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, I've been so inspired by all of you. Like, I just can't wait to see everything that you guys do too. So you inspire me daily, especially like just through Instagram and seeing like all the stuff you do. I really love being a part of this. So thank you so much.